Actually about what we're calling the Silver Surfers. So this is what is happening online, and we've got a fantastic panel for you today. I want to introduce to you Lori Bitter, who is the CEO of Continuum Crew and also of eons.com. So I'm sure she's got a couple of things to follow up on one of our last questions. But with that, I'm going to introduce Lori so we can get on with the panel.
Thank you, Sherry, and I'm delighted to follow Emilio and Alex because I think we have a lot of insight to bring to some of the themes and the vision that they set forward. As Sherry said, I'm Lori Bitter. I'm your moderator for this panel, The Rise of the Silver Surfers, and I'd like to first introduce you to our experts today. Peter Greene, who's first to my left, is currently responsible for directing the strategy and development of solutions for Nielsen's business and clients within durables categories, such as the ones they're showing here at CES. For over 20 years, Peter's been involved in the research of consumer behavior and purchases, and his knowledge and insight have made him a trusted partner to many leading executives in a variety of different industries. And next to him is Peter rDeMaris. I had two Peters on my panel. It was very easy to keep track of. With more than 23 years of marketing experience, 15 focused on the interactive space, Peter rDeMaris has had remarkable success driving traditional companies that serve the boomer population to online. While VP of Consumer and Internet Marketing at IAC, Peter launched Entertainment.com to market the entertainment coupon book. Currently, Peter is focused on driving the UnitedHealthcare Medicare web and mobile experience to meet the demanding expectations of this boomer population. And last, but certainly not least, is Karen Klein, who is the CEO of Silver Planet, a concierge service that provides seniors with the knowledge, skills, and resources to take an active role in maintaining and improving their health, keeping seniors at home, are we okay? And out of hospitals. Karen brings over 2 decades of legal and entrepreneurial experience to Silver Planet. Thank you. And with over 25 years as an attorney in the corporate and private sector, Karen carries her passion for justice to elder care, improving the quality of health care for both boomers and seniors. And as Sherry said, I'm president and CEO of Continuum Crew, a marketing services agency that works with companies targeting boomers and senior consumers. We also own LifeStage targeted content and communities. We acquired eons.com, which I'll talk about in a minute to clear up any misunderstandings, in April of last year, and also a share in Grand, the digital magazine for grandparents. Last year, we launched a business-focused coalition called Move Beyond Age to provide a forum for companies to join the conversation about better design of products and services for older consumers. What we know from our research and the very active EONS community is that there are about 80 million plus boomers who are busy, working, using technology to manage every aspect of their lives, as you heard Alex and Emilio speak about. And they're doing that in almost equal percentages with younger cohorts. So, let's get rid of that myth right away. They play games, they watch videos, they shop, they buy apps to help them navigate their lives. They have smartphones for texting, photos, music, and wayfinding, but they've moved beyond the phone now to tablets. You're about to hear some really exciting new research from Nielsen about the boomer market, and I wanted to share a little bit of a check from the EONS community, and I hope some of these stats kind of help put its death, the announcement of its death to rest. In fact, EONS did fail as a boomer portal site. That's true. They had a lot of content, and it was a very expensive site. When they stripped out all the content and let the users begin speaking to each other in a social network, EONS began to find its niche and to find its way. And that's what we own today, is an 800,000 member boomer-focused social network. We have over 1,200 user-generated life-stage focus groups. There are more than 15 grandparenting groups who deal with everything from first-time grandparenting to raising grandchildren. There are over 20 caregiving groups who not only support each other in the care of elderly loved ones, but are also talking to each other about the care for handicapped children as they age and care for addicted children and children returning from war. There are more than 50 groups about dating over the age of 40, and these range from people who've lost spouses to people who are still single by choice at 50. Not huge numbers when you compare them to Facebook, but Eons is really different. Eons is about the we. None of these people knew each other when they joined Eons. They've all congregated around these groups, around passions, interest, and purpose later in life. We also have some lifestyle groups, things like Frugal Over 50, solo traveling, more than 20 groups related to technology. And I will say that the Eons community actually connects with each other around their technological issues. We don't have a chief technology officer to teach them how to use the site. It's a very interesting model. They also meet up offline for events. They call them skits, S-K-I-T-S. It stands for Spending the Kids' Inheritance Tours. They've gone on cruises, met at spas, and they've even just met around the corner at a local tavern. In aggregate, the businesses that I work with engage about 15 to 20 million consumers aged 45 to 85 on a regular basis. They aren't who you expect, and as soon as you move to define them, they move to something new, which is what makes this consumer complex, sort of interesting and exciting, and certainly desirable. I invite you to open your mind now and listen to this new research from Nielsen, the integrated marketing case study from UnitedHealthcare, and very important, the legal implications of moving to online communications from Karen. Without any further ado, Peter Greene.
Okay. So we're going to try to do this, and for those of you who are Seinfeld fans, I'm having like flashbacks of the Mike Douglas episode, right? So we're going to try and do this as a little bit like a talk show setup. So my good friend Peter here, who I've known for about 3 minutes, is going to click through for me.
I'm not going to click. It's not clicking.
Great. So first of all, thank you, Lori. Appreciate the intro, and it's not working, so that's fantastic. It is great to be here today, and you know, I appreciate everyone, and I'm sure everyone from the Silver Summit appreciates everyone taking time out of their busy schedule at CES to come here speak. There's lots of excitement around the show, and there's lots of exciting and new products that are coming out right now that hopefully will attract many of the consumers we're here to talk about today. So for those of you who don't know anything about Nielsen, we are the world's largest research company. And as such, we know more about the consumers around the world than anyone. And to put this presentation together and given 8 minutes to do it, or 10 minutes to do it, it's not easy. Because I reached out to a few colleagues and said, I need some boomer information. And I got boomed with data and data and data. So hopefully this all makes sense. Also, because we have so much information, you know, part of what Nielsen does is we provide what we like to call uncommon insights to our clients. And it's not because we don't know the obvious, it's because we know things that aren't obvious, because of the breadth and depth of the information that we have. So I'm going to share with you some of that information about today's boomers. And this data comes from a variety of different Nielsen data assets. And we have two main sections of our business, the watch and buy side, as we like to call it. And watch being the things you may be familiar with, like the television ratings, the online ratings, and some of the print media ratings. And then the buy side is, you know, Nielsen is the largest tracker of fast-moving packaged goods in the world. We also track music sales and video game sales as it's relevant to CES. So let's start with the basics. Thank you. We all know that the boomer generation was born between 1946 and 1965. There's approximately 81 million of them out there, and they account for 26% of the population in the United States. And right now, so, you know, females outnumber males by a slight amount. And that's to great glee in the audience. So, while not on this slide, we at Nielsen sometimes look at boomers as two groups. Right? The early boomers who were born from 1946 to 1955, and the late boomers who were born from 1956 to 1965. And my favorite term, we like to call them the Brady boomers. And we'll talk about that in a bit. So early boomers vividly remember where they were when JFK was shot, where they had friends who served in Vietnam, and they remember all the protests and rallies around that. And musically, this group was polarized with what you heard as we walked in, for those of you who were here when we started, the Beach Boys, but also Bob Dylan. And here's something, and this is why you look at them as two different groups. 3/4 of the early boomers are empty nesters at this point in their lives. Their younger siblings, the Brady boomers, and for those of you, anybody want to guess why they call them the Brady boomers? So they actually grew up with sitcoms like The Brady Bunch, and also they came from similar, many of them had similarly blended families. They came of age in the 70s with the end of Vietnam, Watergate, and the gas crisis. Anybody want to guess who musically represents this group? We're going to make this interactive. Who said that? And he still does today. And here's the big difference. 40% of the Brady boomers are still raising their children at this point in their lives. In total, and I saw this in the earlier presentations, this is good. Somebody's obviously reading Nielsen's press releases. In this group has tremendous purchasing power, $2.3 trillion a year on goods and services. Being older and more established, they're 20% more likely to own their own homes, and over half of them have household incomes of over $75,000. Since Nielsen has information down to the household level, what we can do for marketers in this space is we can, if we had time today, I could talk to you about the Bronx, New York, and compare it to Las Vegas, Nevada, down to neighborhoods in Omaha, Nebraska, if you wanted to. But since we don't have that time, I'm going to spare you on that. Thank you. So again, boomers spend over $2.3 trillion a year on goods and services. They're using this purchase power to purchase not only what they need, but absolutely what they want. And you heard that earlier in the keynote as well. Looking at where boomers shop and what they buy, they have a higher propensity to shop at high-end retailers like Nordstrom's, Neiman Marcus, Ethan Allen, and Amazon.com online a lot. They like catalogers like LL Bean and Eddie Bauer, as well as, believe it or not, both television home shopping networks do very well with boomers. And they're buying things for themselves and apparently for their pets. So they're looking for companionship, and I guess they're finding it through their animals. They also have a higher propensity to buy convertibles. And the accessories, I guess they have to accessorize their pets for that, to look good in that ride with them in the open air. So you can see those dogs with the nice goggles and fancy sweaters. They are, speaking of what kind of cars they drive, boomers are 44% more likely to purchase a Mercedes-Benz than others. They also index high for purchases of gardening products and music, with jazz being actually the highest of that, as well as flowers and collectibles. So they're spending their money on pretty much anything they want, right? For those of you who might own an internet site that has collectibles, right, and tchotchkes, here you go. You found your market. And they're a benevolent group in all seriousness. They spend more than any other generation. They have a higher propensity to donate over $250 a year to charitable organizations. So that's another way to connect with them. And this is my favorite part. Since we're in Las Vegas, we've got to talk about gambling, right? Boomers and gambling. They're big-time gamblers. That is if you consider lotto big-time gambling. Over 25% of boomers have told us they've played lotto in the last 12 months. But in all seriousness, if you've been to CES and you've been to a casino, you know that boomers have a higher propensity to visit casinos than any other generation. They've got the disposable income, makes a whole lot of sense. Thank you. Let's talk about what they're watching. So for all the TV manufacturers here at CES, thank goodness almost all boomers own a television, and almost 9 million of them own at least 4 televisions in their house. And they're watching them a lot. They make up 32% of the television audience, and they watch more TV than every other generation except Gen Xers. So they spend about 29 hours a month watching television. Again, for marketers, lots of ways to connect. And they're watching many of the top shows that you see released by Nielsen's weekly TV ratings, but they also have a higher propensity to watch channels like Fine Living, Bloomberg News, as well as QVC. We talked about the home shopping earlier. They're also one of the heaviest consumers of traditional print media. They make up a huge portion of newspaper readership in the US, as well as magazines. Newspapers like New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Chicago Tribune, and magazines. Anybody want to guess what magazines? Since we're doing, and there's a sponsor here, so there you go. So AARP, you're welcome. Sunset, House Beautiful, Metropolitan Home, Bon Appetit, and Travel and Leisure. So there was a talk about how much they're traveling too. Interestingly enough, though, and this is something that that'll be interesting to watch in 2012. As of Q3 of 2011, they watched on average about 4 minutes of video online a month. with the proliferation of tablets and all the streaming capabilities they have, I would anticipate you're going to see a pretty significant jump in that in 2012. So they're connected. We talked about this. There's 29 million boomers who describe themselves as heavy users of the internet. They shop, bank, play games, get directions, and check the weather online the most. And when they're shopping, they're not just, maybe unlike Gen Xers or other groups where they're just going out and finding and taking kind of a chance on some sites that they may not know or that may not be reputable. They rely on Shopzilla and BizRate to help guide them. On average, boomers spend nearly 30 hours a month online. But there's a subset of boomers, just over 10%, or 8.2 million of them, who spend 20 hours a week or more online. I think they're more internet savvy than we give them credit for. They're also getting more mobile savvy. Boomers play games on their phone, they send emails and texts, but more importantly, especially for CE manufacturers out here, they've actually figured out how to connect their Bluetooth headset. According to data through Q3 of 2011, approximately 34% of boomers now own a smartphone. This group has a ways to go to catch up to some other generations, but year-over-year figures show double-digit increases for ownership of smartphones within this group of people. And we've seen in their purchasing patterns that as technology becomes more mainstream, boomers are quicker to adapt. They're not first ones there by any means, but they'll come along as more and more people accept this technology as part of their daily lives. And I've been sitting here in the back and I saw how many people have an iPad with them. Okay, I'm not going to ask how many boomers there are because I'm not asking age. Somebody did that already though, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so smartphones. Let's stay with smartphones for a second. Given their income levels and the price of adding a data plan, it's not going to be a deterrent for them to continue the adoption of smartphones. And keeping in touch with their family and friends on the go is very important, and that outweighs any costs. So we would expect to see increased ownership figures throughout 2012. Those boomers who already own a smartphone, and that's the circle there that you see, they're using social media apps in a big way. When looking specifically at mobile apps, on-the-go boomers utilize LinkedIn, Facebook, Foursquare, and Twitter a lot. They tend to, and this is interesting, they tend to favor LinkedIn over others, including Facebook. However, I saw that number and I said, it doesn't sound right to me. I want to dig a little bit deeper, and thankfully at Nielsen, I have the ability to do that. And I looked at this across all platforms. So when you factor in computers and tablets and mobile, that changes. Those numbers change a lot. Boomers account for 53% of all boomers are on Facebook, while only, I think it's 28% are on using their mobile phone. Where LinkedIn, it's 34%, right? If I can't see my slide from here. But it's 34% of boomers are using their mobile version of LinkedIn. But when you factor in all the other platforms, that drops down to 12% across all platforms. So really what Nielsen, with that information, what marketers can do is they can't just take a single strategy for LinkedIn or for Facebook or whatever. But Nielsen's ability to kind of dissect the market allows us to help find the boomers that marketers are seeking to connect with. So with all this said, and I hope you can see that boomers are a diverse and vibrant segment of the market and should not be ignored or cast aside for younger, more tech-savvy generations. And this is the kitschy part of my presentation. So marketers, catch the wave of silver surfers, connect with this large and wealthy part of the population, continue to connect with them through traditional media, but also through new media. Through the websites they visit, the social networks they frequent, blend new techniques with proven ones to maximize your opportunity with this highly desirable group of consumers. So again, sticking with the surfing theme, I hope Lori appreciates this, the boomer wave is cresting. Nielsen can help you keep your balance as you ride this to increase sales. So with that, I'd turn it over to Peter, who's already up there.
Yep, Peter.
All right. So I'm just going to stay up here. I'll go to my first slide here. So I have a question. How many of you love your health insurance company? Right? So we compete with the airlines for the bottom of the customer satisfaction curve. But what I'm going to talk about here is primarily around how we sell direct to consumers. But there's a shift in how we're doing it. It's very consumer-centric. It's certainly in line with a lot of other marketing organizations out there that have figured it out. But I'm just going to go ahead and dive in here. So Peter rDeMaris from UnitedHealthcare. I work for the Medicare and Retirement Division, which we sell, like I said, direct to consumer, the Medicare prescription plans and health plans. And we serve over 9 million members, which makes us the largest provider by the number of lives that we serve. Our go-to-market strategy is one of multi-channel. So ultimately, we're looking to be where our customers are. Our customers specifically, well, I should say that the new customers that are coming in, which are the ones that we need to capture, are boomers. About 10,000 boomers a day are aging into our product. So that's the target market. That's what we're trying to capture. In fact, our first boomer, and this shows you how long ago I did the presentation, our first boomer enrolled in February of last year. So about a year ago, we captured our first boomer. So we're very excited about this new trend. And where are boomers? So everybody talks about the lifestyle of the boomer today. And what they're facing now as they're aging into Medicare is a decision that they haven't had to make before. Their company's not paying for their health insurance anymore. They are going to have to pay for it. So it's as they face retirement and face new healthcare decisions, they're probably also dealing with their parents and their parents' healthcare decisions and potentially helping to finance those decisions. So it's unique, and I don't know that we know how folks are going to react at this point, but it's certainly something that we're looking at. And it ultimately is our challenge. Our challenge is to capture these folks. So this is the no kidding slide. We market online through traditional channels and non-traditional channels, like other companies. We've built, and I call it our acquisition machine. We've got our website in the middle. We have all the media that we're buying, whether it be DRTV, doing direct mail, or looking at the online pieces like search engine marketing, display, social, mobile. All of those things we're spending money on, and we're trying to capture the boomer where they are, essentially. And ultimately, we want to drive them to our website. That's the most cost-effective interaction for us. But we don't want to limit that. We don't want to force everybody through the website, and we also don't want to force people to have to enroll through the website, because it's a big decision, and it's a very complicated decision. So we offer opportunities to call the call center or meet with an agent face-to-face, and typically that's across the kitchen table. And what we're finding is that the boomers, they don't want somebody coming into their house and sitting across the kitchen table. They want to do all the research online that they can. Then they want to call the call center or enroll online. So what we're trying to do is optimize each one of those channels so that we can provide a great experience with whatever they choose. What's interesting is as we've seen the boomers start shopping on our websites, the time on the site has gone up considerably. About 2.5 years ago, we averaged about 20 minutes per visit during our selling season, and it's gone up to 40 minutes. And and as we watch what the people do on the site, they're reading everything. They're spending time looking at all the information that we have, and they're starting to enroll at a greater rate. So that's the using, I'll call it the traditional online approach. It's a machine, and you know, our analytics are very strong, and we're doing well there. I have 4 key points, though, that have been unique to the advent of the boomers in our market. Personalization. I don't know if you can all see the picture. There's a picture of a couple on our homepage, and that picture is it matters. It matters because the Medicare population that we serve ranges from age 65 on up to north of 100, and a 65-year-old is going to identify with a picture very differently than somebody who's 85. And with the boomers, again, they may be coming to our site to look for health insurance for their parents, and if there's an 85-year-old couple on there, then that makes sense to them. But if they're coming to look for themselves, they don't want to see an 85-year-old couple. So we have to figure out ways that we can personalize, or at least segment, the traffic that's coming into the site and present, and this is just one example. We want to be able to present the experience that's much more relevant, that's relevant for whoever's coming to the site. So personalization is one point. Choice, I've talked about this a little bit. How and when I want to interact with UnitedHealthcare. It needs to be a multi-channel approach, and we need to be, as I said, we need to optimize each one of those channels so that the experience can be positive. I've made this point. I'm not the same. I'm not the same as my parent. So again, treat me differently than you would treat my parent. And then allow self-service. Give enough information for me to make a decision to move to the next level. And it may not be a purchase decision, but just give me the information so that I can make the decision and don't really try to sell me. And that's an approach that we're taking that's working for us. Now, this is where we've stepped into I'll call it a different marketing approach, where we were a direct marketing machine, as I mentioned before. What we found is that if we are attempting to get people to enroll online, for example, we really need to educate them. And in order to do that, we need to create content that's easy to digest, easy to understand, and really explains a very difficult concept, which is Medicare and health insurance. And so we created Medicare Made Clear, which is an entire platform. I'm going to focus on the online portion of it, but it's an entire education platform around Medicare. Medicare changes every year, so this is becoming a source for prospects and members to come to and find out what's new with Medicare, if they understand Medicare, or sort of go through our Medicare 101 courses. And Peter talked about, I think the stat was 3 minutes and 40 seconds of online video consumed per month. So our average video is about 3 minutes long, and I think we're contributing to that, because the videos that we have both on YouTube and on this site we have a huge number of views during our annual enrollment period. And the feedback that we're getting on them, they're snippets. They take one concept at a time and allow anybody to digest Medicare. So that has been very successful for us. We extend the reach of this website, MedicareMadeClear.com, to Facebook, to Twitter, and to YouTube. And the numbers I think are really big with Facebook, as Peter talked about. Twitter, not huge yet. YouTube is pretty solid. But I mean, if you have 10% penetration in the boomer population, that's a huge number. That's a huge number. So it's not to be ignored. And so we're testing our way into each one of these channels. In fact, we have a mobile strategy around this that is not huge again, but it's definitely growing, and we know that we need to be there. So this is something that we're very excited about, and I think sets us apart from our competitors at this point. So our takeaway here, just to reiterate, don't underestimate the buying power. Peter said it. I'll say it again. It's just a huge population, and if you have the right product and you have the right approach, you'll do well. Remember the financial burdens that they're dealing with. They've got their kids potentially at home, they've got their parents that they're taking care of, and then they've got the wonderful effect from the economy that on their own retirement fund. Build your machine, and if you have your direct marketing machine, make sure you accommodate for the boomers, because they are different than what you're dealing with today. Engage and empower the boomer to be able to make their own informed decisions. That's probably the biggest one that we focused on over the year. Personalization, I talked about a lot, and then video. Again, video has been huge for us. So that's what I've got today.
Thank you, Peter.
Do you want me to stay up? Oh,
yeah.
Thank you.
So Karen is coming up next, and she's going to talk a little bit about some of the legal perils of social strategy, online strategy, where you can really step in a hole and create problems for yourself. And Karen runs a site that's very well known to those of us in the space, and so she's going to take it from here. And we're sorry that it sounds like there's a train going by outside every few minutes. We're not sure what that is.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me? We all know that boomers are online, seniors are online, and the way to get to them is to engage in conversations. And I'm sure most people here have websites. They're starting to blog. They're having social media sites. You're having your company on Facebook, Google+. But the question is, you're all ready to go. We know that if we engage in conversations, this research has shown the more you start engaging, you can convert people, you can market, and you can increase your viewers and ultimately sell more of your product and service. So what's stopping you? You want to surf, you're ready to go. But what I say is, as an attorney, look out for the rocks. Because if you start surfing and you're going to hit those rocks, you're going to reach a standstill. So the first question I have for people here is, how many people have a social media policy in writing in their company? Well, I see about half the people. If you take nothing away from my talk, you need a written social media policy. The reason for a social media policy is to give guidance to your employees, to your users, and minimize your legal risks. What do you need to have in it? It should be tailored to your business. If you're in the healthcare business like UnitedHealthcare, you care about HIPAA and privacy information. So that means that you need to be talking about privacy. Tailored to your You have to have a specifically tailored to your business. If you're an internet marketing system and you're on the line all the time, you want to have your information about social media for them. If you are a company that's rarely online and not advocating it, then it needs to be more limited. You want to have limits on privacy expectations. Your employees need to know that if you're going to be looking at their Facebook, that you've warned them in advance. If it's company property, you can look at their emails, but you need to warn them about that. You need to understand that if you have non-competes, if you have confidentiality, you don't want people tweeting about your client list to someone else. And the best way to do that is to warn them. We think people know what to do, but somehow we think that social media, when you're out there tweeting, it's a whole different world. Well, it's not. It's the same as what you're doing in traditional advertising, so you need to be aware, you need to have those things in your policy. You need to be clear, you need to train your employees and apply consistently. In our social media policy at Silver Planet, the first thing I have on there is if you won't say it to your parents and your kids, don't tweet it. And it's important to think about those things so that your employees know, and don't assume they know what they're supposed to do. Speaking of your employees, can you access their social media sites? Can you go on their Facebook and see what they're talking about for you? The short answer is yes, if there's authorization to use by the user, and two, that the accessing person uses the service. What does that mean? Well, John's on Facebook and Jane friends John, and the two of them are always on it. And you ask Jane what's on John's Facebook. That's okay, because they're already friends. What's not okay is Jane knows John, but you say, Jane, can you friend John, and then let's look at what's on that Facebook page. That would be a pretext, and that's a no-no, and you can get in big trouble for it. So you are allowed to look at your employees' social media sites if you meet those conditions. And it's important, the law changes in this quickly, but you can't just assume you can just go in and look at everything. There are privacy expectations. And just like with the social media policy, people have a First Amendment right to free speech, which means two people can go online and talk about how they don't like working for you and gripe. That's legal, and you can't do anything about it. And in a social media policy, you in fact should have something that says you have an exemption for concerted protected activity under the NLRA, the National Labor Relations Act, even if you're non-union. It's not just for union people. What are you doing in your social media? Ultimately, what you're doing is telling people about your products and services. You're engaging in conversations because you want to sell. You want to increase users, and you want to sell your products or your services. So how do you do that? You get consumer and you get expert endorsements. Those apply to every platform you're on, whether you have a company Facebook page, whether it's your website, whether you have bloggers. All of the social media pages, what you put on them is considered advertising, and the fact that you think you're honest, truth alone might not be enough. The Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, is really stringent, and they come after people, and the fines are over $10,000 a violation. And what they require is that you be clear and you can be transparent with what you're doing, be honest. And in fact, what research has shown about boomers is they're going to more likely buy from your site if in fact you are transparent and you are honest. So for both reasons, your legal minimization of risk and also to actually engage people and convert them into customers, you have to be honest and transparent. What does that mean? You have to have, when you're endorsing a product or someone's blogging about how great you are, or you have a consumer writing in about how great it is, there must be adequate substantiation for the claims, and there should be clear and conspicuous disclosure of generally expected circumstances. What does that mean? You have a weight loss product and you're going to advertise on your site, or someone's going to blog that in 60 days you can lose 40 pounds, or whatever it might be. And you have substantiation. You have studies that prove that. As long as you have the studies in your back pocket that show that at the time you publish it, that's adequate substantiation. Think about what you'd put on your product box if you have a product. You don't just throw it up there. You think about what's there, and you have to do the same thing for your site. Now, if the weight loss product is really going to work if you also do exercise and it's only for people who are in general good physical health to start with, those are the kind of disclaimers that you need to put conspicuously near the endorsement. You can't hide them in the fine print. We no longer have the days where two font is acceptable. You need to have them clear and conspicuous. And think about on television, we see all the new drugs coming out, and they have a long litany of all the side effects of these drugs, and you're listening and listening. The reason they're doing that, those are the disclaimers so that you know, so the consumer knows. So when you're talking about your product, you're blogging, you're endorsing it, you're having someone else do it, make sure that there's substantiation and that you have the expected circumstances where a consumer can understand what you really mean for when the product's going to work and be effective as you claim. Are you related to the endorser of the product? You are required to disclose any material connections. Is there a relationship with the advertiser? In other words, do you get a gift, or does your blogger get a gift every time someone clicks on that ad? If so, you're required to disclose that. And it doesn't have to be money. Perhaps you got free tickets to CES. Perhaps you are, your blogger or someone is getting a free product. You have someone who's reviewing products because that's what they do. Well, when they get the product to review, you need to disclose that they received that product for free. You can do that if you're tweeting by hashtags, as I have on the slide, sponsor, that you're paid. If you're a blogger or you have somebody blogging, simply put on the blog, for example, this is one example, there's multiple ways to do it. I receive free product from company to review. Does that mean everyone's going to discount what you say? No, perhaps some will. But you've disclosed it and you've protected yourself from claims that can result in thousands of dollars against you. And the FTC does go after little people. So it's easier to be proactive and put what you need to do on your site as you're talking about your products so that you are minimizing your legal risks. Remember, what you're doing is corporate speech. Corporate speech is pretty much commercial speech in most circumstances, which is not as protected as what we all know under the First Amendment, where we can say what we want. You can't do that on your social media sites. What can you do? We know that links are good. Google Analytics loves links in, and it gives you high ranking, so that's great. You like a New York Times article, it's relevant to what you're saying, link to it. You cannot copy and paste it in. There's limitations on fair use if you have a line or two about an article, but you can't just copy it. If you get an email from your friends that's a joke that's that everybody's been passing around, you think it's really great, and you want to post it on your website, you can't. You don't have permission. Before you post something, you need to know that you have permission by the author. Unless it's in the public domain, you can't just put it up. That also goes for photos. If you're in an industry like in mine, in the senior industry, everybody has the same pictures, and you wonder, why does everyone have those same photographs of the same lady? Well, it's because we all get them from the same places where we license the pictures. And it might not be as exciting, but it's legal. Don't just cut and paste a picture because you like it. You have to have permission, you have to license a photograph. And just because it's out on the web doesn't mean it's free. Those are really important tips. How can you absolutely protect yourself? The Digital Millennium Copyright Act has what's known as a safe harbor. So you are able to get immunity when someone says you're infringing or stealing their intellectual property rights. What that means for you to do is you can go to their website at the Copyright Office. For $105 per site, you can register someone in your company to be an agent. In other words, so that somebody's claiming infringement, they can give them notice. You will pretty much be able to be immune if you meet the following qualifications. One, you're not receiving any financial benefit from the infringing material. Secondly, you didn't have prior knowledge of it. And thirdly, and most importantly, that when somebody tells you you've infringed on their material, you get rid of it and take it down. And even if you haven't registered, if someone claims something's infringing, you can fight it because you think it's right, and there's nothing wrong with that. But as we all know as entrepreneurs, fighting a legal battle costs money and it costs time, and we rarely have either or both of those. How many people here have company pages on Facebook or Google+? See, a large majority do. What you need to know about those pages is that the terms of the third-party platform govern what you do, not what you say. While you can be more conservative in the conduct that you allow your users to be, each of those you've clicked. When you set up your page on Facebook for your company or your Google+, you've agreed to terms. But most of us don't read those terms. We just say, okay, and now we're on there and we set it up. Well, those terms matter. More and more people are running sweepstakes and contests. Oh, you can get this free, you can get a product, or you write about our article and you can get something. Well, it might be a contest or a sweepstakes. Google+ doesn't allow that. So you need to know what their terms are. Facebook does allow it. However, among other conditions, they require you to disclose that they're not a sponsor. So it's really important to look at what the terms are of the platform you're using because you're bound by them, and in fact, you've already agreed to them. Finally, I just want to talk briefly about contests and sweepstakes, and they're different things, and it's a whole separate topic. But if you're doing a sweepstakes, it's essentially a game of chance. A contest involves some skill. If you combine them all, you have a lottery, which is illegal. You can't do it. Think about those terms and be really mindful when you're putting up a contest or you're running something for your service or your product. The words mean different things. Each of the 50 states have different rules. Most states require you're over 18 to participate. If you're don't limit to the US. There's specific, really stringent provisions in Europe and other places in the world, and even in territories beyond the 50 states. So it's important to think about what you're doing before you just throw something up there to give away a product, because the state attorney generals will come after you if you don't comply with their rules.
Karen.
These are just a few of the tips. It's complicated, but the rewards are pretty great. So what I would just say is please have a social media policy, monitor what's going on your sites, and be consistent, and you'll reap great rewards. Thank you.
Great.